It's nice to see you all. The reason why we're a bit delayed is that the county commissioners just finished with their land use meeting, and so they will be here in a few moments and we'll get started. So you may resume visiting with each other and we'll be back.
Did you move here from Oklahoma?
Good afternoon, everybody. We are still waiting for the chair of the El Paso County Commissioners, but we're going to go ahead and get started, and you will forgive him when he slips in. My name is Stephanie Finley. Can I get everyone's attention, please? I think those around you would love to hear. Thank you so much. My name is Stephanie Finley, and I'll be facilitating the meeting today, and I want to say welcome to all of you. Thank you for braving the 4 seasons of Colorado weather. It's been an interesting day, so it's nice that you're all here. I want to introduce the panel first, and then we'll get started, and I'll give you the how we're going to deal with the meeting today. So to my left is Tom Nepple with Springs Fab, and he is the chair of the Board of Directors for the Colorado Springs Regional Business Alliance. We're here. We have Bob Cope from the Mayor's Office representing the Mayor today. President of City Council, Keith King. Colorado Springs City Council, in case we have other trustees or council members in the room from other towns. Amy Lathan, the Vice Chair of the El Paso County Board of County Commissioners. And to my far right, we have Carlos, who's here with the United States Air Force Academy, Carlos Cruz. Doug Price with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Dr. Brian Burnett with UCCS. And Andy Doyle representing the United States Olympic Museum. So thank you. And I would like to acknowledge our other elected officials who are in the room today, because we appreciate their service to all of you, to us. So if you are an elected official, would you please stand? Yes, you have to. Thank you. So this is our second meeting of the public meetings for City for Champions. And last month we had a great conversation with everyone, and we had a lot of comments and a lot of questions, and our website now should include the Q&A session from last month, and it will include the session from today as well. And then there was an opportunity provided for you to ask questions ahead of time, and we did receive one. So there's at least one person who went there and did that. So that's we'll answer that as we go along. We're going to follow the same format that we did last month, and we will, with the addition of a few comments ahead of time before we go into project updates. So I'll introduce 2 speakers, and then we'll do project updates, and then we'll hear from Tom Nepple, and then we will do, we'll give a chance for Q&A, and then we'll have feedback, and we'll have you out of here by 6. So With that, I'm going to call on somebody who is new to the team. We're very pleased that Laura Newman has joined City for Champions. And for those of you who know Laura, you know what a great addition that is to City for Champions. And for those of you who don't know Laura, I just want to say that we couldn't have anybody better join us because she is a mom. She has been in the hospitality industry for 24 years, so she gets this, what we're trying to do. She is, in my opinion, one of the top financial brains around, which is more than I can say for myself. And she also has the experience of working for the city and is no longer in that capacity, has moved on, and we are just delighted, Laura, that you have joined us. And so I'd like to call you up and let you say a few words.
Hello, everyone. And thank you, Stephanie. I've seen more of Stephanie in the past 3 weeks than I have in the past 3 months. Such an incredible contributor to our community. So thank you. And I must clarify, this is a volunteer role that I have. I committed to in the neighborhood of 5 hours a week or something to this incredible team and this incredible initiative because I believe so in such until the summer months when my children are out of school. But I'm proud to be here and thank you for giving me some time. And I prepared some notes because I feel so passionately and I wanted to say a few things this evening before I turn it over to the experts here that you've all come to hear speak about the individual projects. For the record, this is my first public meeting for City for Champions. So please know, as a city staffer and the city's former chief of staff, I served only in a minor role prior to this time. Because as many of you know, City for Champions is bigger than the city as an organization. We were simply one cog in the wheel. So why am I, this particular community volunteer, standing before you here at the microphone? Much like Stephanie said, there are 3 key reasons as I see it. Like many of you who are parents and grandparents in the room raising the next generation, you're very passionate about the future of our community. So that's the first. And the second is I think I have a rather unique understanding of demand generators and sales tax generators for our city. Because of my prior business experience. And it's been rather unique. I had 24 years in the tourism business as a resort and a hotel professional. Most recently, prior to my city role, was 7 years at Cheyenne Mountain Resort, repositioning that asset for financial success here in our community. And certainly the past 2 years as our city's chief of staff, overseeing many of our citizen services. So I think that's the second unique contribution that I could make as a volunteer. And then third, I had the very unique ability to hear our citizens' voice on a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis, of the services and the infrastructure investments that they seek from us on behalf of the city. And what I heard time and time again is higher paying jobs, more higher paying jobs for our community, the need for additional city services like transit, expanded bus service, as well as park and trail enhancements, and certainly the need for investment into our city infrastructure, particularly stormwater and the state and condition of our roads. And I believe the City for Champion projects can and will deliver sales tax revenue that will contribute to helping create jobs and fund those investments in services that I just mentioned. But I will be the first to tell you tonight I am not an expert. I shouldn't be considered an expert. I'm just a contributor and a volunteer. And I'm certainly not like any of the 4 speakers that will follow me. But as someone who served in a highly responsible position for our city for 26 months, with virtually no municipal government experience before the day I stepped into the role, I do know how to ask the right questions, to make decisions, big, bold, significant, far-reaching decisions. And I will be the one that's asking those questions in addition to help researching and finding the answers on behalf of all of you. And I do believe that these projects are community defining and legacy making. And so as we come together today to get even further up to speed on City for Champions and the individual projects, I would like to ask everyone, because I know not everyone is a fan in this room of City for Champions, and that's okay, but I do ask you to take a step back and look at the thrilling opportunity that we have in front of us. We have been awarded one of the largest incentives in the state of Colorado's history in order to make City for Champions a reality. And that is good news, no matter how you strike that. To be awarded something because someone believes in our vision is significant. They have shown their belief in the projects by awarding us a potential of $120 million to make it happen, which is scary and daunting for some, because where will the other monies come from? And I get that. But at least let's celebrate the huge win of actually getting the investment and getting the belief in our city. And two issues I would like to touch on that came up while I was the Chief of Staff and certainly continue on today is the issue of transparency that I hear time and time again, and also the issue of taxes. And I have some perspective on that. And again, I'm not an expert. It's just my perspective. And I just want to say, as to the tight group of confidants that put together the inner circle of knowledge during the application process, I say we should respect what they needed to do in order to protect the integrity of the application process. They did that so other cities who might be applying, I realized there weren't others that were applying, but we didn't know that at the time. They did that to protect the integrity, and I know that smarts to so many people in the room who believe they should have been in the know, and they weren't included. But I say right now, let's should just agree or agree to disagree that the strategic and smart minds made that decision, and we should applaud them, not criticize them, because they were actually successful. Thank you, and I wasn't one of them, but thanks for that applause for those who were. And I want to say, as to the transparency of the projects themselves, you know, let's not be silly and let's not kid ourselves that a few people didn't just recently cook up these ideas in the past few months. The idea of these projects were envisioned long before the City for Champions application. They were highlighted in Dream City 2020, Operation 6035, and the recent Urban Land Institute report. These projects were already envisioned by people long before us. Moving on to funding and taxes, which I know strikes a chord with many. I think most of you in the room, or perhaps many of you in the room, know that the Olympic Museum and the Air Force Visitor Center and UCCS Sports Medicine and Performance Facility will not require local tax dollars. Okay, so we can put those off to the side. The committee is still looking at a variety of options for the Sports and Performance Center, including several that wouldn't even include tax dollars. So a lot of people keep talking about taxes, and that is not a foregone conclusion. And I think what some others should recognize, it'll probably take a year, 12 months, to come up with all the different funding mechanisms. And by the way, consultants by experts will help us vet those different funding mechanisms for those. And I feel I should remind everyone we are just in the very beginning stages of the City for Champions journey. If this was a football game, for that analogy, we'd just be a few minutes into the first quarter. This project will take years to come to fruition. And yes, I have a personal connection in all the ways that I mentioned previously when I started. In addition to being a sponsor parent for 2 Air Force cadets, as well as being quite passionate about athletics. School athletics, I'm the Cheyenne Mountain High School soccer team's team mom. Amateur athletics, some people would call me a personal fitness geek. Yes, I do the incline, I do the peak, and assorted other crazy stuff that I won't get into. But I'm also a huge fan of the Olympic version of the sports as well. So with that background given, just know I'm committed to helping you fence sitters of City for Champions come to the side of the supporters. And I'm even brave enough, after my years of experience with the city and working with some naysayers, I'm even brave enough to admit that I'd like to convince some of the naysayers to come to the other side as well. It's a complicated process. We do welcome your questions. Yes, we welcome questions. And trust me, all of us, including myself, have our own. With a project this significant, there is and will continue to be debate and disagreement and uncomfortable conflict. It's inevitable. But with agitation and conflict does come growth. As I told my recent team at the city when I was moving on to be a full-time mom, is I said, don't worry about whether the people and the citizens think we're dysfunctional. It's a word that often comes up, by the way, and many people think of it as a negative. But I said, if we're really doing great work, it doesn't really matter. Even the best of families have conflict. Just drown out the noise and keep being great. I am committed to dedicating my time to question, research, interpret, and share all I learn and find with all of you, at least for the next 10 weeks. And you'll get unvarnished candor with me. When I don't know an answer, I'll tell you. And when I'm unsure, I'll defer to the experts or I'll research it myself personally. So with that said, I'll turn over the podium to the team that you came here to hear speak tonight. And should you have any questions of me, I'll be happy to answer them at the appropriate time of the agenda or following the meeting. And so thank you for hearing me out. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We're going to do something again that we did last time, and it worked really well, and that's for the shy who would not enjoy a moment at the mic. I'm going to give you my cell number, and feel free to text me and ask me questions on the cell phone, and we'll answer those as well to the degree that we can get to all of them. So my number is 719-216-4148 if you'd like to text a question. And now I'd like to turn it over to El Paso County, and I know you have an update on some of this as well.
You're first.
Thank you. I'll be brief, and Stephanie, next time if you introduce me on your left, I think I'm going to have to be upset. I always want you to introduce me on your right. So, and Laura, I've done the incline, but I'll bet you're faster than I am. So I appreciate it. Thanks, folks, for we got started a little bit late. I do apologize for that. We had a land use item that went a little long for us. I'm Amy Lathan, Vice Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and just want to welcome you here again. Want to re-emphasize to you that this is our commitment to have monthly meetings that you can count on to get in front of the county and the city and the project partners and ask questions and hear updates and really know what we know as we're going along through this process. We want to keep you involved in this and hear all the input and be able to share as we are going along. So we're thrilled to see another great crowd tonight. We appreciate that, and obviously we will continue to work with the media to make sure you're aware of the next meetings. We'll keep them monthly. I appreciate many of the comments that were made, and I just want to mention Commissioner Heisey will talk a little bit about the county's third-party independent analysis that we just embarked on that analysis today. And I just, the different kinds of input that we've received over the last few weeks since we were together, it's been great. We've learned a lot. We've gotten more input. We've had more questions, and we've learned more things even within our own ranks. And I just am really excited about where we're going and the information that's out there. And to reemphasize that I think is really important, I think more people are understanding that nobody up here is asking for a tax increase, so that's good. We haven't heard as much of that because we're not. And we're just so very excited about the potential that we have with what the state has vested in this project. So very, very much looking forward to moving forward. The county is in full support of City for Champions and will continue to actively collaborate with the city and community partners to work toward making it a success. We want to thank Mayor Bach for his leadership, and we believe that even though we each view the project sometimes a little differently, we have some disagreements about some of the ways things go forward, we're all fully behind this project, and really are behind it for the same reasons. We're not only behind the project, but we're behind the process and vetting this project. We think this project is an unprecedented opportunity for economic growth and can play a pivotal role in our region's future. We strongly support what it will bring to our city, county, and state, and I think it's important that as we have discussions about how this all works going forward, that we're not losing sight of the potential that it brings to this region. Very important for us to talk about the way that it can be financed and the additional resources that it can bring, because it's all about bringing people here who are not from here, who will open those wallets of theirs and spend money in our region. We stand beside city and community leaders to work together to make City for Champions the history-making, future-defining project that we all know that it can be. And as a 30-year resident of Colorado Springs, I'm very excited to be working with all of you as we move forward in this. Thank you very much.
The Chair of the County Commissioner Board, Dennis Heisey.
When I asked you for your phone number so I could call you at 10 o'clock at night, that wasn't the number you gave me. I apologize for being late. As Commissioner Lathan said, we had a land use board item that we had to get resolved. We'd already continued it once. It was time they had an answer, and then I had a little trouble getting out of the building. We did, in our board meeting today, approve the third-party financial review. BBC is the name of the company, if any of you want to Google them and see what they're all about. So feel free to do that. They're going to do cost-benefit analysis. They're going to do several things for us. We have a pretty good scope of work for them. It will include more than just what came from the state. But one thing we want is honesty. We want them to dig into, I think the word used today was nuances. The economy won't always be good. The economy won't always be bad. Some people that come to town to go to a museum will spend differently than the people that come to town to go to a sporting event. And those are the types of things that they're going to be digging into. They also, unlike the state, will be factoring in folks that may come from Pueblo for a championship event or somebody from Mesa County. From my perspective, I would rather have somebody from Adams County come down here than go over to Delta County and visit the wineries over there. The state, they don't quite feel the same way, but it matters to me. So that's some of what our third-party review will be getting into. We've told them we want to see some results in about 3 months. Hopefully that timeline does not slip too much. But they will be making a presentation when they are done with that, and it will be open to the public, and it will be in a public setting. That being said, there are many partners in this. We have the mayor, we have city council, we have the county. We don't know all the private partners yet. We don't know all the philanthropic partners yet. So. That being said, I do wish that my longtime friend, Keith King, is the reason I am out here. I knew him when we both lived in Oregon. So if you don't like what I'm doing, blame him. I've been saying that for years. I do wish he could have convinced his colleagues to hold off on a letter that I think was a little premature. However, each partner gets to act independently, and I think that when all the facts are out and we know who is on board and the fact that these venues are not going to be sucking money from the public sector, I think you're going to see near unanimous support for these venues when the facts are all in, and that will be sometime down the road. That won't be 90 days from now. That will be sometime down the road when we know what kind of partnerships are available, when we know what the philanthropic contributions will be, and I would guess, well, yeah, probably no real risk in saying it will take a year or more. I don't know how much beyond that, but but I look forward to getting our third-party review back in, and I look forward to being able to have the discussions with those other folks that want to be involved without a threat or a worry of somebody pulling the nuclear option. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Commissioners. If you have a seat that's empty beside you, please raise your hand. And I want all of you who don't have seats to note that if you'd like to come sit down. If you have nervous energy and need to continue standing, that's fine as well. Now I'd like to introduce Doug Price to give us a project update on the Colorado Sports and Event Center.
Good afternoon. Great crowd. I don't know. I think I won the bet with you, Carlos. You thought there'd be fewer people this time, but we've got just as big a standing room crowd as last time. So, on behalf of everybody, I would thank you for coming out and showing your interest. It's heartening for those of us that are working this thing. As it relates to the Sports and Event Center, since we proposed this world-class Sports and Event Center last fall, we have been approached by companies that do manage these types of venues, as well as consultants that have both national, international experience in both the professional and the amateur sports industry. They're involved with facility design, they're involved with entertainment and operations. And they have come to us and said, we want to assist in helping make this a reality. One of the themes that you've already heard today from each of the speakers is about the time that's involved with this. For those of you who may not know, there's a 5-year timeline, if you will, in which these projects need to be significantly started, and they are to be completed in 10 years. So, Laura, I didn't know you were going to go to the first few minutes of the first quarter of a football game, but when I thought about it, we really are still very, very early in the process. So for the Sports and Event Center, we really do want to find the most beneficial financial structure for this venue. There are a variety of ways that we can finance it, and we don't have the answer, but we know that other cities have done successful things that are worth exploring. And we know that it could be everything from private investments to corporate sponsorships to naming rights and public-private partnerships. They're all things that we have to explore around this venue. I do feel that momentum really is building, both locally and nationally. There's a lot of conversation around this, in particular, we're hearing conversations from the national governing bodies. The local NGBs that are here are talking to us and asking us questions about this. I want to thank the public, all of you, for recognizing the importance of getting this right, of getting the right funding structure in place, because once we do that, and we do get it right, it's going to be a venue that all of us locally will be very, very proud to be able to take advantage of and participate in. But I do believe that, like others have said, I think at minimum it's going to take a year. Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to call Dr. Burnett to come give an update on UCCS.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for your attendance here today. I see some new faces that weren't here last time, so I won't go back over what we talked about last month. But briefly, I'll say, if you think about the history, for those of you who know your Colorado Springs history, the Craigmore Sanitarium, which was our first building that was part of a bankrupt tuberculosis sanitarium that's now a world-class university, in our opinion, was really built about medical tourism, about bringing folks to Colorado Springs at the turn of the century to treat tuberculosis and asthma, and it really started to develop the medical piece of the Colorado Springs economy. At one time, there were 4 tuberculosis sanatoriums in Colorado Springs. So if you think about what we're trying to do with the Sports Medicine and Performance Center, it really is coming full circle for us in pulling together that next chapter while leveraging some of the assets you're hearing about here today, most notably the Olympic movement in Colorado Springs. So we are continuing to review our feasibility study. Last month I reported, I don't know if our slides are up or not. Or are they not? That's fine. I'll just walk through my speaking points, but we do have a feasibility study on 2 sites. If you've been up on North Nevada recently, across from University Village, Colorado, you'll see the Lane Center for Academic Health Sciences, which we just opened last month and dedicated. We're very grateful to the Lane family for their gift. And that's the home of the Branch Medical School, Peak Vista Senior Health Center. All of those things are in that building. This building that we're talking about as part of the City for Champions will be either to the north of that building or to the southeast. We're evaluating 2 sites, and either one will be connected by a pedestrian bridge. Thank you. Well, let's see. That's not us, but I can't see it. Oh, look it up. This is really awkward. Oh, got it. But that's not us.
That's you saw.
Okay.
You don't have a slide.
Okay. Well, I'll go through what I sent in for my slides without them being used up. Sorry to confuse you. So the Sports Medicine Performance Center will be built adjacent to the Lane Center. We have, the state budget is moving through the process at the state capitol, and we have asked for and preliminary been given the spending authority for this project from the state because we are a state institution of higher learning. Those will have to be approved by the state legislature. The big change that's happened in the last 30 days is, as we reported, we put out a request for documented quotes for a consultant to help us knit together what will make this a world-class facility, what types of elements from both the private sector, potentially the for-profit sector, come together with our faculty to make this a quality performance center that will bring people on sports medicine, sports performance from around the country to Colorado Springs for treatment, for testing, for those types of things. We think we need an outside expert to help us figure out how to knit those elements together. We got 7 responses. It was due on February 28th. We had 7 national firms say they want to help UCCS figure that out and knit it together. So we're now analyzing those 7 proposals, and in the next 2 months we'll make a selection and get them under contract, and our goal is by May 31st we'll have the consultant underway working with us to help us identify those that are interested in coming with us to put this center together. So that's the big news since last month. I want to reiterate on behalf of the Chancellor what was said earlier and say it again here. Our funding sources are really 4 discrete funding sources, and none include city and county tax dollars. They are the state TIF that was awarded by the Economic Development Commission, leases from the private sector who are going to come in and be a part of this building, bonds that the university may issue to help support the construction, and finally philanthropy, that we're already beginning to ramp up philanthropic gifts towards the center. And the Chancellor has put in writing to both the City Council, county commissioners, and the mayor that we do not intend to seek any local city or county sales tax in support of this project. We literally want to take the state TIF, money this community is paying in state sales tax, put that together with some other creative financing mechanisms, and put our project together and get it moving. So things are flying up there in my head. So I would happy to take questions at the appropriate time, but that's really the update this month. We are making progress on getting the expertise necessary to help us knit together a world-class sports medicine and performance center. Thank you. Just in time.
Next time we'll do a little practice session with our slides, but at least we're getting there. Okay, Carlos, would you like to come up and give us an update on the United States Air Force Academy?
Sure. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Well, let me touch on a couple of things before I update you. Laura mentioned these projects have been thought about and considered for a number of years. When I hired on at the Academy in 2011, the second project that the superintendent handed to me was the Gateway Visitor Center. And so this opportunity to partner with the city to allow us to fulfill that need and upgrade our visitor center and make it a facility worthy of the city and the visitors that come here to enjoy the Academy and the city is something that we've been we're grateful for, and we're going to certainly work with the city to make this happen. Last time, for those of you that weren't here, I mentioned that since the project, the RTA project was approved in December, our superintendent had asked us to do some further analysis in regards to a location for the visitor center. We considered the stadium, and we've been doing some business case analysis on a couple of the locations to ensure that we site the center where it is not only convenient, accessible, and useful to the academy, but frankly, convenient, accessible, and useful to the community and our visitors. And so we're towards the end of the analysis. I'm on the hook to report a recommendation here by the end of this month. And once we get the superintendent's decision on the location, then we will begin what the Air Force, in the Air Force we call the project development phase, which involves a fair amount of preparatory work, official siting, environmental assessments, and then what we determine, what we call the acquisition strategy, which will then allow us to establish whether the project is going to be funded entirely from donations through our endowment, or given the interest we've received, much like Doug, from outside private ventures, whether or not we go with a third-party finance project. And our timeline, as it shows up on the slide, is to work that project development phase through the rest of the year, so that into 2015 we can start now be thinking about full-blown design and eventually construction. So I'll be happy to answer any questions when the time is right, but thank you so much for your time and your attendance.
Before I introduce Andy Doyle as the board member for the Olympic Museum, I'd like to acknowledge what you and the Chapman Foundation do for this community and say thank you for that. So let's give Andy a round of applause for that. And now, if you'd like to give us an update on the Olympic Museum.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. And as I've always said in my role as program officer of the Chapman Foundations, it's really easy giving away somebody else's money, but we're happy to be in this community. I was told today that this meeting would focus on the jobs creation aspect of these projects, and so I want to highlight that first. The Olympic Museum anticipates at least 60 permanent jobs in our operating plan. These salaries will range from $30,000 all the way to $300,000, so these are high-paying jobs. This does not even include the numerous amount of construction jobs that will be making the jobs number go much higher. In addition, we will employ a number of aspiring Olympians in various roles in the museum as well. Other notable highlights to include is the official website for the museum launched last week. I invite you all to visit it. There is a question and answer site that is very helpful. As well, public notices for the RFPs and RFQs went out last week. They were posted in the Denver Post and Gazette. And they were also issued as invitations privately to other firms to participate. Responses to these will be reviewed 30 days following last week's distribution by a review panel of 5 to 7 local citizens who will report their recommendations on selecting these architects, exhibit designers, construction managers, and general contractors to the Olympic Museum Board. The board and our legal counsel are actively negotiating our memorandum of understanding with the USOC. We hope to have that finalized in the next 60 to 90 days. The board of directors have continued our efforts to grow our board. We have grown our board by 2 members. We're now up to 6. Our next two members are Phil Lane, a prominent business leader and local philanthropist, and Joey Cheek, Olympic medalist and local Colorado Springs resident. He was an Olympic medalist in speed skating. Finally, the first museum employee was hired. She is our executive administrative coordinator. I know that there was a little confusion maybe in the Business Journal article that she was our executive director, but she is assisting us in an administrative capacity. So as you can see, we are moving the needle significantly and hope to have future updates for you next month.
And next, I'd like to introduce Tom Neppel, a leader in our community and a business owner as well.
Well, thank you for being here today. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about our local economy. If we can get the slides up. It's behind the curtain. Maybe I'll talk about somebody else's slides. I am the chair of the Regional Business Alliance. With the board members, I know there's some board members here. Would you guys identify yourselves? One in particular, Benita Fitzgerald Mosley. Please stand up. I don't know if everybody's aware. Benita works for the USOC. She's a former gold medalist in the Olympics. So great to have her around. So last month in our board meeting, the Regional Business Alliance, we spent quite a bit of time talking about City for Champions. And we came away from the meeting with a unanimous vote in support of the project. We feel it's the right time to do this in this community. We represent the business community. We need to spur some economic growth in this community and create some jobs, and we think this project will help do that. Now, at the same time, we're supporting the project. We're also offering financial overview. We've got a lot of really skilled and talented people on the board, and we also put that out there as an offer, just as another pair of eyes to look at the project and make sure that we're in agreement with the way it's financed and funded. Okay, what's this? Average weekly wage. So these slides I just recently acquired, actually from Wayne Heilman. So if they're not accurate, we're going to get Wayne, talk to him about it. But these are relatively telling. Now, I'm not exactly sure why we see such a drop in 2013 in wages. It is for 3 quarters of the year, and what I don't know is whether or not this slide actually needs another quarter to go positive. But the point is, you can see that Colorado Springs in blue and Colorado in red, we are lagging behind. There was a time when we led, but we are lagging in wages. And if you read today's paper, you'll note that we're also lagging in job creation. Positive news for the state, negative for our region. Next slide is retail sales. We have roughly 10% of the state's economy here in El Paso County in this region. And these numbers were from the Colorado Department of Revenue. Now, I summed these up. You don't see the numbers. You see the graph that I created off of this. You see the effect of the recession as well. The reality is, when I sum the numbers up, we have a 52% increase over the last 13 years. The state of Colorado has a 67% increase. So the aggregate is 15% below, behind the state. We're lagging in that category as well. Employment rate. This is the number of people employed. Colorado Springs is consistently lagging, and if you'll notice, the gap is actually increasing over the last 4 years. So Colorado's unemployment rate is coming down. Our region is coming down slower than the rest of the state. This one is payroll employment. Again, you see the effects of recession, but you also see the fact that Colorado's payroll employment is increasing significantly faster than Colorado Springs. In fact, I received some data the other day was about 2 weeks ago, and I unfortunately didn't bring that with us to graph, but it showed the last 13 years of job creation in our region, and we are essentially at the same number of jobs we were 13 years ago in this community. So there's been virtually no job growth. I mean, there's certainly been jobs created, but we've lost a lot of jobs too. Those of you who were here in the boom of the semiconductor industry, remember when there was a really vibrant community, a lot of opportunity, a lot of jobs. That entire industry got outsourced to Asia, and we've had a really difficult time replacing that, as you can imagine. We're not the only community suffering that, but we certainly took an extraordinary hit. This last slide is probably the most troubling. This is venture capital funding. This is risk money coming into Colorado. You can see where Colorado Springs barely even registers. In fact, there were 2010, we got exactly $0, and 2013, $0. This was from DJX Venture Source, is where the research for this slide came from. So if I added all this up, which I did over the last 13 years, took the numbers and summed them up, we had roughly 3.8% of all the venture capital in Colorado invested in this community, in this region. And if you remember, we have roughly 10% of the state's economy. So what this slide tells me is that Colorado Springs, and we all know this, people in the business community that have been working with entrepreneurs and startups, we are not considered the place of choice in Colorado to invest money. Now, I will say that we are working on that at the RBA. We've got some pretty major initiatives coming out. You will see quite a bit of messaging here in the next few weeks about an event that we've got coming out in April. It's a 3-day event and it's centered around innovation, creating a culture of innovation. We feel very strongly that this community is behind. We have the assets here. There's a lot of really good people doing a lot of really good things. They're just not very well connected. And consequently, we don't have a lot of visibility. So we're bringing in the Kauffman Foundation, senior leadership from the Kauffman Foundation. This is the first time this will happen in the entire state of Colorado. Venture capital people know where Boulder is, they know where Denver is, they know where Fort Collins is, and they don't understand why they should be in Colorado Springs. So we've got a pretty big job to get that visibility up, and we've got a plan to do that. The other thing that we're working on is a major initiative around manufacturing. I spent 3 hours yesterday on a conference call talking to the state. We're putting in an application right now for some major funding coming out of the federal government to create manufacturing centers of innovation. Currently, the plan is to designate the entire Front Range of Colorado as a manufacturing center of innovation. The way the grant is written, it requires the state, or the area has to be larger than a city, smaller than a state. So the people at Edit up in Denver, we're working with those guys and some other groups to designate this whole corridor as a center of manufacturing. What that means for our community is we're going to get a center built probably somewhere near the Colorado Springs area. Could be down in Fountain at the old San Mita building, which just sold recently. There'll be one in Denver, one in Fort Collins. And what that means is that it dovetail that into the work we're doing with the innovation and entrepreneurs, and we'll be able to launch businesses, we'll be able to help people get products manufactured, learn about new technology. So there's some really positive things out there that we're doing, but it takes time. And around this project, one of the big challenges that we have, and we talk to people all the time, we're out trying to recruit companies to come to Colorado Springs. Last year we conducted industry interviews with over 300 existing businesses, and one of the major complaints is finding talented people in this community, and not necessarily talented people, but specific skills. Manufacturing right now, I've heard as many as 2,000 or 3,000 jobs are going unfilled because we simply don't have the right workforce here. In my company, I also have businesses in Denver and one in Loveland, so I get a really clear picture of the difference from southern Colorado to northern Colorado, just the difference in culture and what's going on up there. I can recruit people, I'd say 10 times easier. I don't know if it's that much, but it's significantly easier to recruit young people to those companies in the Denver and Loveland, Fort Collins area than it is in Colorado Springs. In fact, I was talking to a neighbor of mine the other day. He's got 3 kids. One of them is just started her career, graduated from college, moved to Arizona. The second one just graduated from college, moved to Boulder. The third one's in college in Boulder, has no intention of moving back to Colorado Springs. And I said, why is that? And he said, there's nothing here for them. That's their perception. We know better than that, but the reality is these young kids don't connect well with this, I guess, with this community. We need some excitement in this community. We need some programs and projects like City for Champions that'll get some excitement going downtown. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Now, if you have questions, feel free to approach the microphone and ask your questions. I have been getting text messages, so I'll start out with one of them. Andy, this one's for you. As a recent transplant from Oklahoma, how would you compare this opportunity to some of the incredible transformative projects that Chapman was a part of in cities like Tulsa and Oklahoma City? What sort of hopes do you have for our community as we strive to get C4C done?
That's a great question, because where we are now in Colorado Springs, I see, is where Tulsa was 5 years ago. We had a similar proposition come up in Tulsa. It was called Vision 2025. And that was passed narrowly. There was the same type of arguments on each side, the same type of questions, the same naysayers, the same proponents. It's very strikingly similar. Among those projects that Vision 2025 spurred include a minor league ballpark that was relocated from a suburban area to downtown, relocated to a warehouse district that was formerly a pretty blighted area. What we call the BOK Center, which is a event center that hosts numerous concerts, events, NCAA tournaments. It's the site of our WNBA team that recently relocated to Tulsa. We have a new civic center downtown. These are just the things that are within the past few years that were spurred on by this initiative. There's a creative arts district now downtown that was in a warehouse district that was relocated and designated by the state as a creative district. Now organizations are coming in, arts institutions that are creating art, selling art, proponents of art, and it's really, really a exciting, fascinating place to be in right now. There's, as I can count, 4 new hotels in downtown that were created and spurred on by these developments. I consider Tulsa and Colorado Springs to be fairly like-sized cities, and so I can only hope that these kind of, if you build it, they will come, realities will come true for Colorado Springs as well. So I feel very positive in seeing the growth and the development that was in a community that had all of these features come to fruition, that can be a reality here too.
Great. Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to ask Doug to give us an idea of what's going to happen at that venue and what events will be there, and just promote it a little, and of course the Sky Sox issue.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Beckett.
Thanks for the question, Mr. Beckett. Let me start with the Sky Sox and say that at the moment the Sky Sox are not a part of the go forward plan, and so I think they're happy out where there are, out on East Powers, and they have a fan base out there, and so we really have moved this stadium, the outdoor event center, to being a long field that can accommodate sports like lacrosse and soccer and rugby in those types of facilities. We're not ruling out baseball. There's talk that you can, when you have a multi-purpose stadium, it would be able to be flexible enough that you can have other sports. We certainly are talking to some of the NGBs and talking to USA Volleyball and the types of things that could be done in an outdoor venue. In addition to the fact that it's only 10,000 seats, does give you the ability to do concerts and things that don't. The days of doing the big outdoor stadiums like up at Falcon Stadium, those aren't the types of events that we would be looking to go in there. But certainly sporting types of events and not just from the national governing bodies, but there's lots of sporting institutions here in Colorado Springs that have told us that if we had this sort of a venue here, that they could do it. Adjacent to the outdoor stadium would be a 3,000 seat indoor stadium that probably would be able to take the equivalency of about the width of about 6 basketball courts. So for things like wrestling and basketball and volleyball, things like that, it could fit into those types of events.
Why did you hold it to 10,000?
Well, I think that in the research we were doing, we originally, quite frankly, we were looking at a baseball stadium. And looking at the AAA ball clubs around the country, it seems like 10,000 is about the right number, and so that number has stayed consistent with when we pivoted. Okay. The current location tentatively is down in the Southwest Urban Renewal District, the downtown urban renewal area, adjacent to where the U.S. Olympic Museum is going to be slated, and with a promenade that would connect them. So that would be all downtown in the Southwest Urban Renewal area. Question about will the traffic be able to handle that? Well, that's a great question, and it's one of those things that there are plans to build up to a 1,500 car parking garage there. But that is part of the master plan. There certainly is funds that have been set aside for infrastructure to make sure that there is good flow back and forth on that.
Let's give a glimpse into some of what Doug Price is talking about. Is Nick Reagan here with the soccer effort? Do you want to come up and come to the mic and talk a little bit about what you're all planning? Are you able to do that? Somebody in the audience texted me and said you would do that.
Oh, absolutely. No, I was just surprised. No, thank you for having me and asking me to come up and speak. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions for what we have going on, if you can hear that. Okay. Well, again, thank you for having me. So Reagan Sports, about, not even a year ago, in July, my father contacted me, asked me if I'd be interested in pursuing a professional soccer franchise. I was working for myself at the time, and I was kind of curious about the proposition. So we began pursuing it. Some of the background behind that, the Major League Soccer had just created a relationship with a league called USL Pro. USL Pro was establishing a similar relationship to AAA baseball to Major League Baseball was USL Pro to Major League Soccer. And so that sounded very intriguing. And the soccer hierarchy really, continuing to establish itself and strengthen itself. We pursued it. Before I worked for myself, I worked for a sports lighting manufacturer for a number of years and was very familiar with the state of Colorado. The first thing that we did, and the first thing that I thought about were, where would we put this thing? We're from Colorado. The Golden area, that's where our office is now, will be down here April 1 this year. Excited about that. But right off the bat, I knew that there was only a couple of places we could go. One of the projects that I had worked on, didn't get, by the way, was in Glendale. All right, a rare venue for rugby, soccer. That particular area of Glendale labeled itself as Rugby Town, USA, and that was really their goal and what they were striving to do. Other than that, up north, we could have played at a college field at UNC. They had an old football field that they converted into a soccer field that would have fit our field size. Most people don't realize that a full-size soccer field is larger than a football field. It's even larger than the majority of high school fields that have tracks around them. It needs to be larger than that. We couldn't play it, even if we wanted to play at Air Force Academy, or if we wanted to play up north at Hughes Stadium, or some of those other places, we couldn't even fit there. So those weren't even options. Those weren't even on the table. And then high schools, there's tracks around. Same thing. The field isn't large enough. And so there was Glendale, and then there were some college soccer fields that were potential options, and then University of Northern Colorado. We found out that Major League Soccer has a veto on our application process, and found out that Denver Metro was nixed. And so we had to look for other opportunities. So we knew we were going to be north, Fort Collins, Greeley, UNC, or down south. And it was fortuitous. Right place, right time, call it what you will. It was a great introduction, meeting the Parks Department out at Sand Creek Stadium, looking at that potential venue, and we are going to be making improvements out there. Actually, we have plans to spend money to bring that facility up where it needs to be so that we can host events and we can even make this franchise work. But I tell you what, when we got here and the Parks Department was telling us about the vision for Colorado Springs, it became very clear that this was the place to be. Northern Colorado was ready to spend right out of the gate on campus. Even a facility that was pretty much ready to go would not require a lot of investment from us. They were already willing to commit literally millions of dollars to improvements without even a long-term contract with us. That's how things are going up there, and they have money, they want to spend money, they want to bring things in. So that sounded pretty good. But again, we were looking at more factors than just a facility, even though that's a huge deal. But we are really excited to be in Colorado Springs. I'm not sure if I got to the points that you want to cover,
That
or
is
if
good.
I
Thank you
too
very
much.
No, it's wonderful.
You shouldn't have asked me.
I love the enthusiasm. You must have been in speech and debate club when you were younger, because you did the spontaneous, impromptu stuff well. May we get you to go to the mic, because we're recording it.
I apologize that I got involved with this in the last month or so, and I'm interested. Some things I'm hesitant about, and museum is great. I spent 40 years in Air Force Museum. So you're talking about a lot of sports, and my son plays hockey, and I'm appalled that we have to have small kids get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to play hockey because we don't have rinks. And I think we're down to 2. We're talking about soccer and all that. Let's think about hockey. It's important, and we have a lot of good hockey players. So, and let's get some that can get into the big leagues so we can use them for advertising.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now I'm going to read one question, and then Mr. Murray will go to you again. What are you doing about the toxicity that has been left behind and below at 25 Chimino, right in the heart of the City for Champions projects? I understand it's not in the heart of the projects, but Commissioner Heisey, you are going to respond.
You are correct. It's really not even currently envisioned in part of the footprint. However, should it ever become part of the footprint, the best thing that can happen to a contaminated site is for somebody to want to use it, because that's when it's going to be cleaned up, is when somebody has a better and higher use for it. That's when they're going to spend the money. The EPA will ensure that it is cleaned up. It's a known contaminated site. You know, this is not flying under anybody's radar. So it's everybody is aware of it, including the EPA and other authorities. So when it's time for that site to be cleaned up, time for that site to be used, it will be cleaned up according to EPA standards. And chain of custody says anybody that's owned it is on the hook. Now, probably not great news for those of you that live in Colorado Springs, because Colorado Springs and the utilities happen to own it. So they will be a part of the cleanup effort, but nobody gets off the hook free. So the best thing that can happen to that site is for somebody to decide they want to use it, be it C4C or one of the private, if a hotel wants to go up there after C4C is brought in, they'll be the ones participating in the cleanup. So
Where is that site, Dennis?
somewhere to the northwest, it's actually west of the railroad tracks, but it's in north of Colorado. Colorado Avenue, I understand. So it's not in the footprint, but it is close. So I could see there being a better and higher use for it than what's happening there currently, if this all comes to fruition like we expect it to.
Speaking of hockey, I just got a text that said the Avalanche puck is going to drop in 10 minutes. So I'm a hockey fan too. Mr. Murray, welcome back. Do you have some new questions for us?
Yes, ma'am. I hate to come back and answer the same questions, but we also need to remember, as someone mentioned, strategic and smart minds built the Titanic. So, and I'm worried about excuses. We should never excuse a political process that fails its basic obligation of transparency. I mean, we just shouldn't do it.
Do you have a question for us, Mr. Murray? Otherwise, we'll take your comments in the feedback section.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a
Yes,
question?
ma'am. All right. Well, first of all, Mr. Bennett, can you please give us the projected time of your 5,000-seat stadium that UCCS is building?
We don't have a suggested time frame at this point because we haven't identified the funding source. We have about $250 million of construction projects in front of it, not counting the City for Champions project. So it's probably at least 5 to 7 years out, if that.
It's not in your master plan?
It is on our master.
For 2018?
It's on our master plan to be built in the next 15 to 20 years, but there isn't a current plan for it right now.
Mr. Price, can you give us an example of a successful soccer baseball stadium in the United States?
Yeah, I believe the last one that I took a look at was in Columbus, Ohio. That and I can't tell you the name of the stadium off the top of my head, but the one in Columbus is one that is worth looking at.
I can challenge that because I couldn't find one at all. Mr.
Okay.
Cope, is it the intent of the city not to collect any TIF for 5 years for the stadium?
So are you talking about the RTA state funding
Correct.
or any local?
Correct, and we're talking about the state funding. Is your intent not to collect any TIF money or to bond any TIF money for the next 5 years for the stadium?
Okay, so the way the RTA funding works is that the state is calculating the base in the TIF zone right now as we speak. And once the sales tax increment reaches the level that there would be a rebate payable back to the city of Colorado Springs, it would be collected. Now, it would come back to the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority that would hold the funding, and then no funding would be released on any project until the project was finalized and approved and ready to go forward. And those will be on different time frames.
Since you're speaking for the mayor, can you please help us resolve the news conference last night between the problems with the resolution and the 5 city council members who are now demanding a vote for TIF funding?
I think that's 2 questions, but
Yes, it is.
the mayor certainly looks forward to working collaboratively with both El Paso County and the city council. While there might be some differences in some of the technicalities there, the mayor has always intended to work collaboratively and get these details worked out.
Okay, and I'm going to ask a question from our website, and that is, and I think, Bob, you touched on this, but there's an additional part to this. City for Champions, as I understand it, takes annual sales tax receipts in designated area above 1.5% previous year receipts, with this amount subject to a percentage of state, county, and city sales tax being rebated and made available for debt service under TIF rules. However, Summit Economics calculates that the historical average annual increase in sales tax revenue is 5%. If this is true, projected rebate amount is being artificially increased by manipulation of the calculation rather than growth due to economic effect of City for Champions projects. Did you get all that?
Long question, but I'll do my best to answer that. And first, I'd like to welcome everyone here today on behalf of the mayor who's attending Pressing Business in Denver. It's great to see all the interest in our community and the passion around this topic. And we know that each one of you wants this to be the best city it can possibly be, and you love this city. So thank you for being here. In answer to that question, it's important to understand that the entire exercise of the Regional Tourism Act was to zone in on an equation that would identify only net new state sales tax revenue paid by out-of-state visitors. As part of that equation, and in protection to the state of Colorado, the state wants to continue to receive all of the sales tax they're receiving today. Plus, they also want to receive the natural growth of that sales tax, and that's the 1% that I think you're getting to in that question. There were 3 layers of economists that worked on the application that came up with the estimate of 1.5%. Also, it's interesting to note that the EPS report that was hired by the state of Colorado to take a look at this, while they did have other questions with the analysis, they never questioned the 1.5% estimate. But keep in mind that you have to take a look at what's happened over history. You have to look at what's happened with recessionary periods where we've had actual declines. We're looking at 30 years in the future and what's going to be the impact of e-marketing and internet retailing. There's a lot of uncertainty there, but the entire focus was to come up with the best and most accurate estimate for what that inflation rate or that growth rate would be. Now, in the event that it's not 100% accurate and it is at 5%, that means that 87% of the net revenue that's going to continue to flow to the state will grow faster than 1.5%. But at the same time, the projections for the 4 City for Champions venues then could very likely grow by more than what they were projected to grow, so it could all balance out. You know, no one knows what the exact math is going to be at the end, but I think it's important to know that extreme efforts were made to identify and segregate only that net new state sales tax revenue, preserving the base and inflation for the state of Colorado. In the typical TIF scenario, you establish a base, you then designate either all or a portion of the sales tax revenue, and it all gets swept into the project. In this case, this is much more precise and a lot more work went into it to prevent, I think, what the question was aiming at.
Thank you. Commissioner Heisey.
Thank you. On that same topic, there we go. Is that better? No. Stephanie, can I use your mic? On the same topic, our county finance and budget officer tells us that the county growth has probably been more than 1.5%, and our third-party analysis will use the most accurate information they can find. However, this 1.5% we're talking about is state money. The Pikes Peak region is a donor region. El Paso County is a donor county. We give more to the state than they give back to us. So if we're off on state money on this direction, that means we get to keep more of the state money. It's not money that was going to go to the county general fund or the city general fund. It was money that was going to go to Denver. So we get to keep more if the numbers are what we said, or what was reported, 1.5%, and real growth was maybe 5 or something, that means we get to keep more and we have less leakage leaving the county. So I'm not sure I see the downside there.
Welcome back, Mr. Hawk. I'm going to ask you all to limit your questions because there are a lot of people texting and wanting to speak,
No problem.
including the
No problem.
feedback section.
My
So
name
go
is John
ahead.
Edward Hawk. I'm a longtime teacher of American government and economics. I appreciate all the effort that all the C4C supporters have put in this project. I'm not anti-sports. I'm not anti-growth. As far as improving a community, I do have a list of my own of ideas that are better, I think, and less costly and more taxpayer friendly. But I have a couple questions. First, one comment real quickly. Mr. Heisey, County Commissioner, I would totally disagree with you about the pollutants in the area footprint for C4C downtown. I've read the study, the Walsh study. It's all through the site, and I have the list here of all the things, and I can give out copies to people. It's dangerous to humans. Okay, a couple of questions. I just mentioned the proposed site. It's going to be very expensive, a lot more than people are saying, to clean up that site. Nobody's going to want to touch it. It'll bankrupt the city.
And what's your question for us?
My question is, okay, a couple questions. Why do we want to build a sports stadium or a multi-events facility when the World Arena is losing $2.5 million a year? Most of our venues are losing money, okay? They're underutilized. We have a perfectly good city auditorium with some additional modernization. Could handle just about any events. And my second question is even bigger. Why would we put all of our available money into this project, much as it might be an attractive idea, when we have so many infrastructure projects across the whole city that are dying for help, bridges, roads, etc.? Pardon the look on my face and my little uncomfortableness today, but I was dodging deep potholes all the way down here, street after street. Our streets are atrocious. This should not be
Thank
the
you,
priority
sir.
of the city.
Let's get your
Thank you.
answers to your questions. Nicola, do you want to answer World Arena? And Amy, Commissioner Lathan, you'll answer the other.
Thank you, Stephanie. Nicholas Sapp, County Budget Officer. I actually hold a seat on the World Arena Board and also sit on the Finance Committee of the World Arena Board. And I've lost you in the crowd there. I'm not. There you are. I'm not sure where you got your information from, but that is not accurate. The World Arena is not losing $2.5 million a year. It actually is very much in the black and profits. I cannot give you the exact numbers, but I want to say it's somewhere around the $500,000 range. But that's very, very discretionary as far as to details. But that is not an accurate statement.
And I think if I could, I just also speak to this, the question about all available resources going to this project. I just want to try to put that into a picture, and I appreciate Commissioner Heisey's comments on that. This is about, as has been said, this is about net new revenue into the area, attracting people from out of state. Now, from the county's perspective, we get to attract people not only from out of state, but also from within other areas in the state. So if we can get people from Denver to come down to a museum, that's really great for us. The state doesn't care so much about that. They want people crossing the Colorado border. But all that said, this is about net new revenue that wouldn't exist if it weren't for the venues existing. So, in other words, nobody is going to spend money in an Olympic museum if there is no Olympic museum here. So the idea is that you have the net new revenue, and that, as was described, you've got a growth that we all calculate, we all forecast, we all budget on, and then you've got a certain amount of, a base, and then you've got the growth of 1.5%, and then there's an amount above that that's calculated based on the projections for the net new sales tax that people will be spending. It is 13% of that increment that the state has dedicated to the investment in these projects. So the 87% that remains is new money that flows into the state's general fund. Likewise, the formula would be applied potentially to the county, to the city, to look at that net new sales tax above the base and above the growth, look at that increment, take 13%, invest into the projects, and the additional 87% that's generated, because of course there's 100% of something, whatever that number is new revenue flowing into the general funds of both the city and the county. That revenue is general fund revenue for stormwater, roads, bridges, infrastructure, revenue that would otherwise not exist. And that's the plan, that's the model. Now, it's that model that we want to look at with the third-party review, this independent third-party review, to say, hey, we've got these projections. These are fantastic projections. The return on investment in this is extraordinary. Remember, all of this is, there's no increase in the sales tax rate. It's just increased economic activity that produces more sales tax revenue. And so we're looking for that third-party independent review to say, are those projections right? Are those projections on target? Does this really fit? What thresholds do we need to meet? And how much revenue will we really generate for the city, the county, the state? So when you're looking at the increment and hearing the discussions about the financing, do not forget and do not undersell the newly generated revenue, that 87% on the other side. That's all new money coming into the general fund for the infrastructure support. It is not taking anything away from what we currently do.
Okay, let's go to you, and then I'm going to go to the first question I received. Go ahead.
Hi, Kelvin Kilbane, resident of Old Colorado City. I'd like to ask Keith King, do we have to have all projects go through, or can we do a la carte, so to speak? And if we did, could we use the money for the stadium to support the other new venues to actually have a world-class city to back those new world-class venues and help with the infrastructure, but still be able to get those other three venues? Maybe not necessarily the stadium, since it's very contentious, but use that money, or would that money not be available to do infrastructure? And what are the three letters for the third-party independent party? Was it VBC or BBC? BBC. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. King.
Thanks for the question. I've enjoyed this process, and thank you for being here. As City Council President, we've looked at this issue several times at the Council, and we've also had several town hall meetings to discuss this very issue. And the original application, when it went forward, was coupling all the projects together. I think there has been a decoupler put into the resolution that came forward that we just saw on Friday, that says the projects can be decoupled, but they have to stick within the funding formula that is necessary for what the funding is done as far as the process goes forward as the state TIF that comes down from the state. So I think there is some flexibility that is going forward. We'll see how the resolution goes forward. I will just quickly mention that when I read the resolution, I'll speak for myself as a council member and as co-chair of the council, this advisory committee. I was very concerned about the structure of the resolution and had a discussion with Dennis about that structure and wanted to find a better balance and find a more appropriate way of doing that structure. And so we gave some concerns that we had to the mayor when we had lunch with him yesterday, and we talked about some of those concerns. And we also had a press conference yesterday where we talked about those concerns. I hope those will be worked out. I think the current resolution as it stands does not have enough transparency in it, and as it goes forward, it needs to have a better balance as it's structured, as we structure the formula for how we do the different projects. And so I think the issue that is given right now in the resolution on this very issue that we're talking about is it gives an opportunity for the applicant, which is the mayor, to change the percentages if he wants to try to change those percentages as it goes forward. And so the stadium will probably take maybe year or two to get ready to go forward, and so we'll have to see how that all plays out and how the formulas work, but there is some concern about how the formulas can be reallocated if they do not get done, and there's some concern about how that would play out and who would have the authority to do that in the resolution. So hopefully we'll get some of those details worked out as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to the question that we received early in the meeting. What can we do to be sure messaging of C4C out in the community is consistent and accurate? Are there committees of the various sectors in our community that one can enlist or engage with to advocate on behalf of the projects? I'm going to ask Laura to answer that.
The newbie gets a question. And correct me if I'm off base in any way, panel, please. I guess I would say about messaging is I find that there is a significant volume of public meetings that are titled City for Champions. And I think it's important that constituents get to have a voice in all the different areas of our community and the different times of day and so forth. However, if the core strategy team or the project leads are not present to give the information specifically at that particular time, the message may become convoluted. So I think there's a forum for citizens to give feedback and their voices are heard, but then there's a forum for the experts to share the most current messaging, and I think it's meetings like this. And when I was first, we were speaking about my coming on volunteering and we were talking about communications, I thought maybe there could be a logo or a bug of some sort on any sort of marketing material that says the core group will be present to answer your questions that are experts in those particular projects. And as it relates to volunteering, as I understand it, there are no specific committees yet until the Regional Advisory Board is established. There's going to be an overarching Regional Advisory Board, as I understand it, and then there's going to be very specific project-specific boards. And once those are established and announced publicly, committees will be formed, and there'll be the calling for the public to be able to contribute and come forward as citizen volunteers. Zip, how was that? Okay.
That was good.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Don or Dan?
Don Godey.
Don, that's what I thought. Welcome back.
Thank you. My question is for you, Mr. Heise, is that correct? You recommended that not to deal with these contaminated soil at 25 Chimino until something was being done with the property, or that's what you insinuated. And I was just curious, where did you get that information? Where did you come up with that conclusion that you shouldn't deal with a toxic site until development occurs?
You reached the wrong conclusion. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. I would love to have that toxic site cleaned up immediately, along with a few others throughout the region that I'm aware of. But what I'm saying is usually it doesn't happen until somebody has a use for the site because nobody's willing to put the money into it until they're ready to do something with the property. I will never advocate for leaving contamination alone. It all needs to be cleaned up, and the sooner the better.
Okay, thank you. And just real quick on that note, Mark Walker, who is an official with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, back in 2007, when Jeff Smith was considering partnering up and buying that property, he suggested that, or he did say that the coal tar is in the soil and the groundwater. So instead of in the spirit of Newman, your first name? Laura, sorry. In the spirit of collaboration and wanting to see City of Champions happen, why couldn't we just put in some monitoring wells, which are not terribly expensive, and put them in the surrounding area so we could find out whether or not, we know the groundwater is contaminated and we know the soil is contaminated, but maybe we could find out how much it's contaminated so that instead of waiting around for several years, we could actually stop it sooner than later. And the cool thing is, since 2007, there's been a lot of breakthroughs in cleaning up contamination because gasification happened all over the country. And we're learning faster ways to do it and less expensive ways. And I think it would be kind of cool to start that a little bit earlier. And where could I get involved in maybe just getting some monitoring wells put around that area?
You know, that's not something that I'm in charge of, but I am completely with you in getting things cleaned up as soon as possible. And if that's a step we can participate in, I'll be on board with you.
And who would I talk to about that?
You know, I'm not, we probably don't know until we know what property has been.
I just get really
part of
nervous
the-
when every time I
Right.
read about these sites and in the water, because water moves. It never stays in one place,
Right.
ever. And soil doesn't stay, and when you start to hit the ground and you start to do stuff to it, it can change too. So I just get nervous, and as much as I really like these public things, I don't want to come to every single one and bring it up every single time. But if I have to, I will, until at least I feel like there's a strategy.
Okay.
I know you've had a meeting with City for Champions representatives since the last meeting, right?
Officially?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was official.
Well, I mean, we've reached out to you. And
Okay,
I
I
think
didn't realize that was on behalf of City of Champions. I
It's-
thought that was just two people wanting more information. So
Well, I think it's a positive step to
could
have
be,
your voice
absolutely,
heard.
absolutely.
So we're not discounting what you're saying at all,
Okay, all right.
is what I'm trying to express to you.
Fair enough. And one quick little note is coming from 30 years of graphic design. Don't use Russian constructivism colors when designing a logo, because if you study this color scheme right here and where it came from, it's not good. And I mean that in a very positive way. You don't want to use those colors when putting out a message this big. Okay, if you know your history.
There you go. Very good. Okay, sir, come on up, ask your question. We're about to run out of time, so I
All
want
right,
to make sure.
no problem. Yeah, my name is Glenn Carlson. I'm running for House District 14 up north. I really have two quick questions. USOC is a huge component of this city, always has been, right? And we recently negotiated to keep them in the city. Has there been any fear of them leaving when that contract is up, or any commitment from them that when we make this big investment, they're also going to make the investment to stay with us in the city? That's the first question. Second question, I really love the fact that you touched on science and technology earlier. I do think we're missing that in the community. And probably a question for Mr. Cruz Gonzalez. Is there any intention to make the visitor center just more than a visitor center, but really work with the local colleges and students and make it a science and technology hub, if you will? And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Carlos.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, one of our goals for the Visitor Center is to change the whole nature of the displays that will be in the center to highlight a great deal of how science and technology helps the U.S. Air Force perform its missions for the nation, and how big a component science and technology is, just the indication of our cadets. And so we're talking about displays, interactive displays, and information that will highlight those two elements. So certainly.
Great.
And who wants to take the first question?
The USOC question. Maybe putting the cart in front of the horse, but.
I do know that when a contract was signed, which I don't know the year that it was signed, but it was a 25-year contract, and they are maybe 5 to 6 years into that contract. I've had discussions with people at the USOC about this topic, and they're very, very upbeat. They're very positive about the relationship that exists with the city of Colorado Springs, within the region here in El Paso County. One of the things that we certainly have going for us that we won't always have going for us is that the head of the USOC is a Colorado Springs native, and Scott Blackman, this is his home. He loves it here. So I would never want to put myself in a position of speaking for the USOC, but we have asked the question. And one of the things that I've heard brought up when talked about the museum itself is that somebody somewhere is going to build an Olympic museum. And the idea of having it here in Colorado Springs, it makes sense for it to be here. And so we think that despite the fact that you will hear people talk about that there are other Olympic museums in Atlanta, and in Lake Placid, and in Salt Lake City, they commemorate the game that was held, the games that were held in those destinations, those venues. But this is something for Team USA to be able to come and celebrate. And one other thing I'll just mention, I don't know if Harris is still in the room. Harris is right there from USA Wrestling. In a couple of weeks, they're going to be announcing that Colorado Springs is going to have a new sister city in Greece with Olympia, the home of the birthplace of the Olympic Games. And so the idea of tying in the old with the new and the future is something we think that just will speak volumes for why the USOC calls this their home now and will into the future.
Okay, thank you.
As we approach our last question, if you have feedback for the group, I want you to start coming to the mic, because you have elected officials here, you have representatives from the project, and that's why we're here, is to get that feedback as well. So go ahead, sir.
This is a yes or no question for all the members sitting up here. You just have to, one word, yes or no. With the reduction of the Army of 140,000 troops, BRAC in 2015, 25,000 Air Force personnel being reduced, have any of you factored this scenario into your numbers? In other words, have you factored population drop? Have you factored sales tax drop? Yes or no?
So it's not our policy to limit your answers. You are welcome to answer more than one word. So go ahead, commissioners.
The county has. Okay. So your figures are at where they are right now. You have.
So I get to go beyond yes or no?
No. No.
Our third-party study will factor that.
Okay, but how about the rest of you folks up there? Come on. Speak up.
Well, I'll speak for the academy. Certainly, I mean we have to. It's we get planning figures from the Department of Defense through Headquarters Air Force, and as part of the analysis that we're providing for the superintendent, we will talk about how that impacts the project.
How about you, sir? Yes or no?
This is about attracting people to come from out of state. So I don't have a yes or no simple answer for you. I will tell you that the analysis that was done was about trying to attract people to come to the state of Colorado, regardless of the number of people who live here right now. So your question's a fair question, and I think that Commissioner Heisey said it will be in the factor that they're looking at, but our numbers are about attracting people to the state of Colorado.
Our numbers are about jobs, so our plan is to provide opportunities for those people when they're displaced, so maybe they can stay in this community and be productive. So our numbers are about creating a culture, a business-friendly culture here, a culture of innovation, entrepreneurship, getting more business going and creating those jobs.
By the way, your numbers are the only honest numbers I've ever seen in this town in 12 years.
And I would answer similar to Mr. Price, that the research that was done was based upon attracting net new visitors to the state. But your question does illustrate a great point, and it illustrates the need that we need to diversify our economy and build up other industries such as tourism, because we're not going to be able to rely on defense as much in the future.
Tourism is not anything to really rely on.
Just one of many.
Well, let me at least say this.
Let's get the rest of your answers.
Let me just say this, that one of the things that you heard earlier talked about were the number of jobs that not only have left Colorado Springs, but I think the term that Tom used when he talked about it was jobs that have been outsourced. And one thing that won't happen with tourism jobs, they will not be outsourced. The people that get hired will work in the venues and the attractions that are built here. And it's one of the beauties of our industry. It happens to be the third largest employer with over 14,000 jobs in our region.
Dr. Burnett, would you like to answer?
No, we haven't factored in. We don't think it applies to our project.
You don't think so?
Nope.
Okay.
Ditto.
Okay, great. Councilmember King, did you want to answer that?
I would think we'll participate with the county, hopefully, in their economic studies, so we know exactly what's going on.
Okay, great. Sir?
Yeah. My name is Mark. I've been here 35 years, and I plan on being here another 70. So if all your kids want my tax money, so be it. It's for them. Everyone that came before me that built this city, they did a great job. It's fun to be here. I would not live anywhere else. Some ideas for the Olympic Museum that should definitely go where you are proposing it to go. It should have an IMAX theater in it. Kids want to see 3D these days. We can attract so many school groups from around the nation. The IMAX should be IMAX style, so maybe call those filmmakers, make a 45-minute documentary about the Olympics. That would be cool. It's kind of the same thing for the Air Force Academy Visitor Center. Like, your presentation should be airplanes. Like I said, I've seen one of the best air shows here my entire life. Most people that come here when they visit don't get to see those kinds of things necessarily. UCCS, you guys are medical, you're drawing in more students or more tourists just to see what's going on? I guess that was a question, sorry. Okay. But if you guys aren't using the fiber optics that the Colorado Springs Utilities is offering, I would suggest you get on them. Because another thing you want to do to keep young people here is open up the fiber optics. As far as I know, this has been in the works since 2000. Research and development was done to say, hey, who might buy our service? Well, you're looking at it. And then my last one with the stadium. The indoor stadium is hockey and the outdoor stadium is soccer?
No, the indoor, there is no ice scheduled for the indoor, so no, it is not slated to be ice for hockey.
Okay, but again, just to make everybody happy, like, is there not enough room in this town for all kinds of stadiums or playing fields? Let's call them playing fields, let's not really call them stadiums. But again, it's a good idea, thank you.
I'd like for you to give us your name and how to contact you, because you intrigued us last month with your fiber optics comment.
Well,
and so
it
if
kind of
you
makes sense as a sixth utility. I'd say fifth utility, but apparently stormwater is now fifth utility.
Okay, very good. Dr. Burnett has something.
I just want to say the university is on the city's fiber optic network. It's how we connect to our fiber optic network up and down the Front Range. So the city's a great partner with the university, and it's why we have the connectivity we do.
Cool, you guys should be one of the that have the fastest. Same with the Air Force Academy. If you don't have it,
Your name?
can I get it to you afterwards?
Yeah, you can. He'd like to keep his privacy, please. Yes, sir?
Hi there. I want to first of all say, my name is Trevor Deerdorf. I own a small business downtown called Amnet, and I've lived in Colorado Springs for 21 years, and I'm really excited about what's going on. My business is downtown, really near where City for Champions is going to be, and although I know there's probably going to be traffic and things associated with that, I'm really excited to see that happen. My wife and I have even talked about when this happens, whether or not we want to move downtown. Because I think downtown is going to be a really vibrant place. But I just wanted to give the feedback that I'm super excited about this. My kids are super excited about it. They're in college at UCCS. And I think that they're more inclined to stay just from the energy from this, not the venues, but the energy from this revitalization for our city. So I just want to thank everyone. I know that there's been a whole lot of heartache and headaches over the discussion on this, and you guys are just sticking with it, and I just really appreciate your efforts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor.
Welcome back.
Trevor, I just wanted to
from
thank you and AMNet for partnering with the museum.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know who was speaking for a moment. Welcome back. I know we've heard from you several times, and we have a gentleman behind you, so go ahead if you have new information for us.
Yes. My name is Deborah Stout-Meininger. I apologize, I have a cold. The one thing that really concerns me still is that even though the Walsh study in 2011 came out with the test information from 2008 from the wells that are there, and I assume that you at least, Dennis, were here in 2008. So it delineated that there was a great deal of area on the west side of the tracks. They did not do the testing past the tracks on the east side, so it's never been delineated how far that groundwater contamination or the soil contamination goes, because it was 5 city blocks that the original plant was, not one. And no dollars up front, quotes, for any of that. To say that's going to be a detail at the end is very disturbing, because that could cost over $100 million for that kind of mitigation. It's not cheap, it's not fast. And 13 to 16 feet down where those test wells that are there go is not cheap and not fast as far as how far down that contamination has been confirmed. So that the fact that everybody's saying it's going to be the last thing, that means the city is going to be on the hook for bonds and all this extra funding and the TIF and everything else before you go, oh, by the way, we're going to need more money for this contamination, and if you don't, then you're on the hook for all the rest of it anyway. That's not a good way to approach it in my book. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everybody that's standing up here that has actually put in the time, put in the effort, and has stayed a part of this project through the good times and the bad. My name's Andy Inman. I did not have the privilege of growing up here for the last 35 years. I made a conscious effort to move here 5 years ago as a 25-year-old young professional. By definition, I'm young and I wear a suit, so I'm calling myself a young professional. But essentially, my wife and I chose to make Colorado Springs our home, at least for the temporary when we first moved out. Over the last 5 years, we have decided this is where home is. We are not going anywhere else. So I'm excited to see projects like this coming through. I graduated out of a class of 90 people in a small town in northwest Iowa. There are currently 15 of my graduating class living in Colorado. 2 live in Colorado Springs. The rest live in Denver. They all came through Colorado Springs, chose not to stay. Okay? That to me says that our city has to change. Okay? Denver has the amenities that are attracting young professionals. These are not people working low-end jobs. These are people that 3 of them have started their own businesses in the Denver area because they felt there was a better opportunity than Colorado Springs. So stick with it, please. Thank you. Let us know how we can be involved, especially as young professionals, and attract more people. I think you guys hit the nail on the head saying this is not about necessarily retaining what we have, but this is about growing Colorado Springs to the next level. So thank you.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Go
My
ahead.
name is Sherry Brunzel, and I do have a question. I don't know who can answer it, but you were talking about the money that comes as a tax rebate from the Regional Tourism Act, and you don't have to actually begin construction for 5 years, but is there an interest payment on that money that comes and isn't spent for 5 years?
As President King indicated, that the resolution is still being drafted, but as I understand it from the current draft, that interest income would be retained by the financing entity or the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority, and the interest income would be able to be used for the projects.
Interest income to the state? I'm talking about interest expense to the county or city.
No interest expense, and while the money was being held in anticipation of being used for the projects, if it earned interest, that would be retained for use by the financing entity.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to spend some time with her after the meeting and finish the conversation, because I know we need to wrap it up.
I do have one last comment. That was a question, but my comment is, I do read the studies, and Ms. Newman made a remark about the Urban Renewal Institute study that was done, Urban Land Institute. There was a woman in there named Jan Minami who gave a glowing bio. I did read the bio, but since then I did a little research on what she had done. Her bio took into account her successes in 2007. The Urban Land Institute study was done in 2012 with her input to how the City of Colorado Springs should develop their downtown. Since that time, there's been a report come out in 2009 and 2011 that the California Planning and Development Report, the city that this Minami worked on was Fresno. It was named as one of the top 20 most miserable cities in California, and it was compared to Bakersfield, Oakland, Anaheim, all having less than ideal downtowns, but none of those districts is as desperate, depressing, or even threatening as downtown Fresno. And my point is that we need to take a look at history so that we don't repeat it in our community. And in Colorado Springs, the number one most miserable city in California is Stockton. They have gone bankrupt. They had a new stadium, new courthouse, parking garage, and marina. And Colorado Springs has followed suit with a new courthouse, sheriff's office, jail, citizen service center, and now we're talking about a convention and event center. And we certainly don't want to repeat those incidences that they've had in California, but we need to have hard facts and not nuanced qualitative analyses. We don't need any nuances. We need facts.
Okay, thank you. Did you have one last comment for us?
Very fast.
Okay.
My name is Roy Thompson. I've been here 35 years. I came from Canada. I'm always accused for bringing the bad weather. You all got it wrong. I left to leave the bad weather. I love to see this planning. I've always felt that Colorado Springs was very, very short on planning. And with what you are doing, there are two areas that didn't come up. One is the convention and visit staff in the city. These people are the people who bring in more money than any other organization because I've been associated with them. There is a certain amount of money they get from hotels, but some of that money is siphoned away. I think that needs to go back because if you want to make this a success, we've got to bring people in, and they're the people who do that. And the second one is we've got to do a lot of work on the airport. I mean, the big thing is that we've got the way to get people to help the airport is to have us all stand up. Instead of driving to Denver, which we all do, including myself, because we can save money, we've got to open our wallet, pay a little more, because by more people leaving the airport, we might bring in more airlines. So that is where the city has to explain to people that that's the only way we're going to get more airplanes in service. So you two people, I don't know if it was forgotten or what, but you're very key to make this a success.
Great, thank you so much. Commissioner Lathan? I'm going to ask Commissioner Lathan to close us out tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Stephanie. And she reminded me of some great comments that I want to share with you just to close everything out. But please accept our thanks for your time and your interest and your investment in this whole process. I want to emphasize that for all of us up here and all of you, this is a process. We're still asking questions. We have a long way to go at the county. We're really careful about the moves that we make at the county. That's why we're entering into this third-party analysis. We are extremely careful. And so we're in a process. And I'm just very grateful that people are here to talk and be a part of that process. And at the end of the day, we're not trying to put on rose-colored glasses and sing a la-la-la-la together and pretend that everything's just great. We want to look at the facts. We want to look at the assets that we have, the opportunities that we have. And quite frankly, as Commissioner Heisey mentioned, what an incredible asset to be able to get the state to give us back money that they're going to take over the long term anyway. So we're always trying to get the state to kind of back off of the things that they do down here in a number of ways. This is an incredible opportunity. And so thank you for just walking with us in the process. This little booklet was put together because some interviews were done with a number of business leaders throughout our community who have gone on trips over the last several years to other communities to kind of take a look at how they operate. Not to go and turn us into anything other than what we are. We have a really great soul here in Colorado Springs, one that I'm never going to leave, and I hope my kids won't leave, and I love here. But we're trying to make the best out of what we've got, and we're trying to go around and look at some best practices and things that people have done in other areas to figure out how we can kind of put those together here. So over the course of years, a number of business people and elected officials and leaders throughout our community have gone on several trips to take a look at some of those. Interviews were recently done, and I just want to share a little bit of the feedback that some business people gave. Here's one. Once they decided what they wanted, the leaders in these communities went after it regardless of naysayers who discouraged forward momentum. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't question. We're questioning as well. We're just talking about continuing to walk in the process. An intentional, deliberate emphasis to make things better and energize the region was common to their success. They didn't rest on their laurels, but plowed ahead to get things done despite differences of opinion, which I know we have, controversy and disagreement, which we have had, and I'm sure we will again. In essence, they chartered their own future and got through very tough times to make their community a better place to be. Another comment was this. Consistently mentioned as a top-of-the-list outcome was the relationship building that occurred among participants from the Pikes Peak region and with leaders from the cities they visited. The opportunity to affiliate helped them become more open-minded to possibilities and resulted in greater trust, which led to putting the community ahead of individual interests and ego-driven positions. Conversations were focused on problem-solving, big ideas, and the importance of creating a shared vision. And I want you to know that nobody up here wants big ideas that are going to jeopardize this community. We're being very careful that the big ideas are going to advance the community in the right ways. Learning from best practices in each community, there came a desire to invite more voices under the tent, resolve differences in private, take calculated risks, and think broadly and strategically in order to bring prosperity to the region. I'm just so grateful for the people who are willing to have this conversation. Again, we want to do this with our eyes wide open. Where we find things that aren't right, we're going to turn around and figure out where we go next. Where we find things that are right, we are going to diligently pursue those. And so we thank you all for being here with us. We're going to see you next month. We hope you come back again. We'll put new reports together if we've got more things to report. And we just really appreciate you being a part of this whole journey that we're on together. Thank you.